My family stole my company and gave it to my sister. I locked them out and built a stronger empire. I'm Claire Dawson, 28, lead software engineer at our family's company, Dawson Dynamics. On a muggy Friday night in October, I sat at our Austin dining table, expecting just another ordinary family dinner. Instead, my entire world flipped upside down. My dad slammed his fist on the table, his voice booming. "Claire, give up your position at the company or you're out of this family." My mom nodded, her eyes cold, adding, "Your sister will be taking over as CEO. She's the future." My sister smirked, sipping her wine as if victory was already hers. This wasn't dinner, it was an ambush. Dawson Sync, the app I had poured my soul into, had just brought in $100 million in revenue for the company. I built it from scratch, debugging every line of code while they slept. Yet here they were, crowning my sister, who couldn't tell a server from a spreadsheet, as the new boss. The ultimatum hit me like a freight train: surrender my position or be disowned. My stomach churned, but I locked eyes with them, forced a smile, and stood up. "Fine," I said, my voice steady despite the sting. I turned and walked away, leaving behind the family and the company I had given everything to. They thought they had broken me, but I had built a safeguard into Dawson Sync, a security lock only I could unlock. 6 months later, the calls came one after another, desperate and endless as their empire crumbled. I only replied, "Remember that dinner? I don't forget." Before we dive deeper into my story, tell me what time it is where you're watching and which city you're in. I want to see just how far my story has traveled. 14 months earlier, I was coding my heart out in our Austin office, dreaming big. My days blurred into nights, hunched over my laptop, building Dawson Sync, an AI-powered app to streamline supply chains for retailers. It was my baby, a dream to revolutionize how businesses moved goods. I'd write code for 18 hours straight, fueled by coffee and ambition, tweaking algorithms to predict inventory needs with pinpoint accuracy. My boyfriend, Ryan Porter, a brilliant software engineer, was right there with me, debugging lines of code in our cramped office near Lady Bird Lake. We'd high-five over a fixed bug, our laughter echoing through the quiet nights. Dawson Dynamics wasn't just any company, it was my dad's legacy. Thomas Dawson, our chairman, started it in 1985, back when Austin was just a sleepy college town. He'd built it into a mid-sized player in tech, and I grew up hearing stories of his hustle. My mom, Susan Dawson, handled finances, keeping our books tight and our reputation polished. She cared about the family name, always pushing us to look the part at industry events. Then there was my sister, Monica Dawson, 2 years older, and all charm, no code. She thrived at networking events, tossing around buzzwords like disruptive innovation without understanding the tech behind it. I'd roll my eyes, but let it slide. She was family, and I figured we'd find a balance. By spring, Dawson Sync was ready. Ryan and I ran final tests, watching the app crunch data faster than anything on the market. We pitched it to a major retail chain, and Carlos Vega, their supply chain manager, signed a deal that changed everything. Dawson Sync rolled out across their warehouses, cutting costs and boosting efficiency. The contract brought in $100 million in revenue, a number that made my dad's eyes light up. At our next board meeting, I remember standing in that glass-walled room presenting the numbers, my voice steady but my heart racing. Ryan squeezed my hand under the table, his grin saying, "We did it." For a moment, I thought I'd earned my place, not just as the coder but as a Dawson. But Monica had other plans. She started showing up at tech meetups around Austin, schmoozing with startup founders and venture capitalists. At one event near Dell's headquarters, I overheard her telling a crowd, "Dawson Sync is just the start. My vision will take us global." Her vision. I bit my tongue, but it stung. She'd never written a line of code, never stayed up until dawn fixing a crashing server. Ryan noticed my clenched jaw and whispered, "Let her talk. You built the real thing." I nodded, trying to focus on the app's success, but Monica's words kept creeping in. She'd breeze into our office, dropping phrases like strategic synergy while glancing at my laptop like it was a foreign object. My parents ate it up. Dad would clap her on the back, saying, "That's my girl," while Mom nodded, her smile tight but proud. The tension grew subtle but sharp. At a family barbecue, Monica pitched her global expansion plan to Dad, all buzzwords and no substance. I tried to chime in about Dawson Sync's scalability, but Mom cut me off, saying, Let your sister shine, Claire. Ryan shot me a look, his eyes saying, "Stay cool." I did, but it was like swallowing glass. I started noticing how Dad's emails to me were shorter, more about logistics than praise. Mom's calls focused on Monica's latest networking win, not my late-night coding sprints. I told myself it was just business, that family would come through. Ryan wasn't so sure. One night over pizza in our downtown apartment, he said, "They're leaning on Monica too much. You need to protect what's yours." His words stuck, planting a seed I wasn't ready to admit. Abra by summer, Dawson's Sink was a hit, but the spotlight was shifting. Monica's charm offensive was working. Investors started calling her the face of Dawson Dynamics. I'd walk into meetings and feel eyes skip over me to her. Once, Carlos Vega pulled me aside after a demo, saying, "Your app's a game changer, Claire. Don't let anyone steal your thunder." His words hit hard, but I brushed it off, hoping my family saw my worth. Ryan kept me grounded, reminding me, "You're the brains behind this. They'll see it eventually." I wanted to believe him, clinging to the idea that my work would speak for itself. But deep down, I felt the ground shifting like a fault line under our family's foundation. Monica's ambition was growing, and I was starting to wonder where I fit in their vision. By summer, my phone became a battlefield of its own. I was still riding high from Dawson Sink's success, but the air in Austin's tech scene was turning sour. Monica had taken her charm offensive to a new level. At a packed tech meetup near Dell's headquarters, she worked the room, flashing her perfect smile and dropping lines like, "Claire's great at coding, but she lacks the vision to lead." I overheard it from a colleague who texted me, their message blunt, "Your sister's trashing you." My jaw tightened as I read it. Standing in the Dawson Dynamics office, the hum of servers mocking my rising anger. Monica wasn't just networking. She was undermining me, painting me as a one-trick coder in front of Austin's startup crowd. Then came the calls. Susan rang me one humid afternoon while I was debugging a new Dawson Sink feature. Her voice was calm but sharp like a knife wrapped in silk. "Monica's showing real leadership, Claire," she said. "She'll take the company further. You should stick to the technical side." I gripped my phone, words catching in my throat. Before I could respond, she hung up, leaving me staring at a blank screen. A day later, Thomas sent a long text. "Monica's been talking to investors. She's got big plans. We need you to support her." Support her. I'd built Dawson's Sink, the app that brought in $100 million, and now they wanted me to step aside for Monica's empty buzzwords. Brewer, the pressure hit me like a slow burn. I felt like an outsider in my own family, their voices echoing Monica's so-called vision. I paced our Austin apartment that night, the city lights flickering outside. Ryan sat on the couch, listening as I vented. "They're rewriting my story," I said, my voice shaking. "Monica's out there lying, and Mom and Dad are buying it." Ryan leaned forward, his eyes steady. "You're the one who made Dawson Sink. They can't take that away unless you let them." His words cut through my fog of frustration. He was right. I had to protect what I'd built. We started talking strategy, not just for the app, but for my place in the company. That's when the idea hit. Dawson Sink's core algorithm, the one that made it a game changer, was mine. I could lock it down. Ryan, always the practical one, suggested an authentication lock, a biometric safeguard requiring my fingerprint every 72 hours to keep the algorithm running. "It's not sabotage," he said, grabbing his laptop. "It's insurance." We got to work in our apartment, the glow of our screens lighting up the room. I modified the code, embedding the lock deep in Dawson Sink's architecture, disguising it as a standard security protocol. Nobody at Dawson Dynamics would notice unless they dug into the source code, which Monica couldn't do if her life depended on it. We tested it relentlessly. Ryan ran simulations mimicking server crashes to ensure the lock held. I scanned my fingerprint, watching the system hum back to life each time. "This is your shield," Ryan said, his voice firm as we finalized the setup. I nodded, feeling a mix of relief and defiance. The lock wasn't just about protecting Dawson's Sink. It was about protecting me. If my family wanted to push me out, they'd learn what happened when you sidelined the person who built your empire. But I still held on to a sliver of hope. Maybe Mom and Dad would see my worth, realize Dawson's Sink wasn't just a product, but my legacy. I kept working, tweaking the app, answering Carlos's emails about expanding the contract. He'd call me directly, saying, "Claire, your app's saving us millions. Keep it up." His praise felt like a lifeline, a reminder that someone valued my work. But at home, the distance grew. Monica's name was all over Thomas's emails, her strategic meetings dominating his calendar. Susan stopped asking about my projects, her texts now about Monica's latest investor lunch. I'd read them and feel my chest tighten like the family I'd known was slipping away. Abe Ryan kept me sane. One evening as we walked along Ladybird Lake, he grabbed my hand and said, "You're not just a coder, Claire. You're the heart of that company." I wanted to believe him, but Monica's rumors were spreading faster than I could code. At another tech event, a founder pulled me aside, asking, "Is it true you're just the tech grunt behind Monica's big ideas?" I forced a laugh, but inside I was seething. The groundwork was being laid. Monica was stealing my spotlight, and my parents were paving the way. That Friday night in October, the dinner table turned into a war zone. I sat across from my family in our Austin home, the clink of silverware cutting through the silence. I'd spent months pouring my soul into Dawson Sync, the app that brought in $100 million for Dawson Dynamics. I expected a pat on the back, maybe even a toast. Instead, Thomas stood up, his face hard as stone, and declared, "Monica's taking over as CEO next week. Claire, you need to resign for the good of the company." The words hit like a punch to the gut. I froze, my fork hovering over my plate as Susan added, her voice icy, "If you don't, you're out of this family." Monica leaned back, her lips curling into a smug grin, and said, "Face it, Claire, you're not cut out to lead." The room felt like it was closing in. My heart pounded, but I forced myself to breathe. "You're serious?" I asked, my voice sharp. Thomas didn't flinch. "Monica's got the vision we need," he said, folding his arms. "You're a coder, not a leader." Susan nodded, her eyes avoiding mine. "We've decided," she said. "Monica's ready." Monica chimed in, her tone dripping with condescension. "You're good at the tech stuff, Claire, but leadership, that's my thing." I stared at them, the people I'd trusted most, now rewriting my worth. Dawson Sync was my creation. 18-hour days, endless debugging, my brain in every line of code. And they were handing it to Monica, who couldn't even log into our servers without help. I pushed back, my voice steady but burning. "I built Dawson Sync. It's the backbone of this company. You think Monica can run it?" Monica scoffed, rolling her eyes. "I don't need to code to lead," she said. "I've got the big picture." Thomas raised a hand, cutting me off. "Enough, Claire. Resign by Monday or you're done here, family included." Susan's silence was louder than her words, her face a mask of agreement. The betrayal sank deep like a blade twisting in my chest. I'd given everything to Dawson Dynamics, and they were tossing me aside for Monica's empty promises. I could have screamed, thrown my plate, or begged them to see reason, but I didn't. I locked eyes with Thomas, then Susan, then Monica, and felt a strange calm settle over me. I'd seen this coming. Monica's rumors, their sidelong glances, the way they'd started praising her vision over my work. I stood up, my chair scraping the floor, and forced a smile. "Fine," I said, my voice cold but even. "If that's your choice, I'm done." Monica's smirk faltered for a split second, like she hadn't expected me to walk away so easily. Thomas's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Susan looked down, her hands fidgeting with her napkin. I grabbed my jacket and headed for the door, my pulse racing but my steps deliberate. Outside, Ryan was waiting in his car, his face lit by the dashboard glow. He took one look at me and knew. "They did it, didn't they?" he asked, his voice low. I nodded, sliding into the passenger seat. "They want Monica as CEO, told me to quit or lose them." Ryan's hand found mine, his grip tight. "They'll see your value, Claire," he said. "They'll regret this." I leaned back, staring at the Austin skyline blurring past. "They will," I said, my mind flashing to the authentication lock we'd buried in Dawson Sync's code. That lock, my fingerprint, my control, was my ace in the hole. They thought they could erase me, but I'd built a safeguard they couldn't touch. As we drove through the city, the sting of their words lingered. I replayed Monica's smug grin, Thomas's cold ultimatum, Susan's silent betrayal. I'd grown up in that house, idolizing my dad's hustle, trusting my mom's fairness, even admiring Monica's confidence. Now it felt like a lie. But I wasn't broken. The lock Ryan and I had coded was more than protection. It was power. I pictured Monica trying to run Dawson Sync without me, fumbling in a boardroom she didn't understand. The thought sparked a flicker of defiance in my chest. They'd handed me an ultimatum, but I wasn't the one who'd lose. Ryan pulled into our apartment lot, turning to me. "You okay?" he asked, his eyes searching mine. I nodded, my smile real this time. I'm not done yet, I said. They'll see what happens when you bet against me. He grinned, squeezing my hand again. That's my girl. I stepped out, the night air cool against my skin, and felt something shift inside me. The family I'd known was gone, but I had Ryan, my work, and a plan. They'd pushed me out, but I wasn't leaving empty-handed. 1 week after I walked out, my phone was blowing up like Austin's rush hour. I was in my apartment sipping coffee with Ryan when the first call came. It was Carlos, his voice tight with panic. Claire, Dawson Sink's tanking. Inventory is a mess. Efficiency's down 40%. What's going on? I leaned back, my pulse quickening. The authentication lock we'd buried in the code had kicked in right on schedule. Without my fingerprint, the app's core algorithm was choking, and Monica, the new CEO, was out of her depth. Carlos's tone sharpened. Fix this or we're pulling the contract. That's $100 million on the line. I promised to look into it, but inside I felt a spark of satisfaction. They'd learn what happens when you push out the one who built the machine. He. By noon, my inbox was flooded. Dawson Dynamics was in chaos. Emails from engineers reported servers stalling, clients complained about delayed shipments. Monica had taken charge, but she was floundering. I got a text from a junior coder. Monica's yelling at us to fix the code, but she doesn't even know where to start. I pictured her in the boardroom throwing around buzzwords like optimize while the team scrambled. She'd never touched Dawson Sink's source code, couldn't tell a function from a firewall. The office, once my second home, was now a circus, and Monica was the ringmaster without a clue. Then Thomas made his move. A sleek black car pulled up outside my apartment that afternoon, and out stepped Daniel Harper, the family's lawyer. He sat across from me, his briefcase snapping open like a warning shot. Claire, he said, his voice smooth but firm. Thomas needs you back to save the company's legacy. Name your terms. I raised an eyebrow, leaning forward. Legacy? They chose Monica over me. Daniel didn't blink. They're desperate. The board's panicking, clients are jumping ship. Come back or Dawson Dynamics is finished. I stared at him, the weight of their betrayal still fresh. They'd forced me out, and now they wanted my help to clean up their mess. That evening, Susan called, her voice trembling over the line. Claire, don't destroy the company, she pleaded. This is our family's work, your father's dream. Please come back. I gripped the phone, my knuckles white. You told me to quit or lose you, I said, my tone cold. You made your choice, she stammered, her words breaking. We didn't mean it like that. Monica's struggling. We need you. I hung up, my chest tight with anger and a strange sense of power. They'd built their empire on my work, and now it was crumbling without me. Ryan was my anchor. We sat on our couch, the Austin skyline glowing outside. They're begging now, I said, scrolling through Thomas's emails, each one more desperate than the last. Ryan grinned, his eyes sharp. You've got them, Claire. They can't run Dawson Sink without you. Make them pay for it. His words lit a fire in me. I wasn't going back to grovel. I'd make them see my worth on my terms. We brainstormed, and I decided to consult, but not for free. $2,000 an hour, I told Ryan, my voice steady. If they want my help, that's the price. He laughed, pulling me close. That's my girl. Hit 'em where it hurts. I emailed Daniel that night, laying out my terms. $2,000 per hour, no equity, no apologies accepted. The next morning, he replied, agreed, start immediately. I felt a rush like I'd just played my strongest card. Dawson Sink was my creation, and now I'd use it to teach them a lesson. I started planning, not just to fix the app, but to set the stage for my next move. The lock was still active, my fingerprint the only key. I'd help just enough to keep Carlos's contract alive, but Monica would never touch the core code. This wasn't about saving Dawson Dynamics. It was about showing them who really held the power. As I prepared, the chaos at Dawson Dynamics grew. Carlos called again, his voice edged with frustration. Claire, we're losing millions daily. Tell me you're on this. I assured him I'd consult, keeping my tone professional but firm. Monica's failures were piling up. Clients were tweeting about delays, and a tech blog posted, Dawson Dynamics' new CEO fumbles flagship app. I read it and felt a grim smile spread across my face. They'd crowned Monica, but she was sinking fast. Thomas and Susan's pleas echoed in my head, but I pushed them aside. They'd chosen their side at that dinner table. Now, I was choosing mine. Kibra. A week later, I walked into Dawson Dynamics like I owned the place. The glass doors swung open, and Brenda Hall, the receptionist, looked up from her desk, her eyes wide. "Claire Dawson, you're back," she said, her voice a mix of shock and relief. I gave her a nod, my laptop bag slung over my shoulder, and headed to a corner office they'd set up for my consulting gig. At $2,000 an hour, I wasn't here to play nice. Carlos had been emailing daily, desperate to stabilize Dawson Sink's performance for his retail chain. I worked remotely with him, granting limited server access to patch the app's output, just enough to keep his warehouses running. Every fix was deliberate. My fingerprint was still the key to the core algorithm, ensuring Monica couldn't take credit. The office buzzed with tension. Engineers darted between cubicles, their faces drawn from sleepless nights. Monica's reign as CEO was unraveling faster than a bad startup pitch. During a team meeting in the main conference room, she lost it. I was presenting a temporary workaround to the staff, my slides detailing data flow adjustments, when Monica stormed in, her face flushed. "Claire's sabotaging us," she shouted, pointing at me like I was a criminal. The room went silent, engineers exchanging uneasy glances. Clients on the video call, including Carlos, raised eyebrows, their confidence in Dawson Dynamics visibly shaken. "Monica, calm down," I said, my voice steady. "I'm here fixing your mess." She slammed her hand on the table. "You broke the app on purpose." Her accusation hung in the air, making the company look desperate and divided. I kept my cool, but inside I was seething. Monica's outburst was a gift. She'd just exposed her incompetence to everyone. Carlos's voice crackled through the call. "If you can't sort this out, we're suing for breach of contract. This is costing us millions." The threat landed like a bombshell, and Monica's bravado crumbled. She stammered, trying to pivot to buzzwords about strategic realignment, but nobody bought it. I stepped in calmly, explaining the patch I'd implemented, reassuring Carlos we'd stabilized the system. The meeting ended with Monica glaring at me, her authority in tatters. Back in my apartment, Ryan was my rock. We worked late, his laptop synced with mine as we fine-tuned Dawson Sink's temporary fixes. "You're playing chess while she's playing checkers," he said, his fingers flying over the keyboard. I smirked, watching the app's performance metrics tick upward. Every move I made strengthened my position, keeping the authentication lock hidden but active. Then, an unexpected message popped up on my phone. Janet Myers, CTO of a rival tech firm in Austin, texted, "Claire, your work's the talk of the town. Join us. We value talent." I stared at the screen, my mind racing. Leaving Dawson Dynamics for good was tempting, but I wasn't done here yet. I replied, "Let's talk soon, keeping my options open." Thomas cornered me after hours in the office, his face lined with exhaustion. "Claire, please," he said, his voice low. "Fix this for good. The company's bleeding." I crossed my arms, staring him down. "You made Monica CEO, Dad. You told me to resign. Why should I save you now?" He flinched, his eyes pleading. "We were wrong. I'm begging you." His words stung, but they didn't soften me. I'd heard enough promises from him at that dinner table. "I'm consulting," I said, my tone cold. "That's all you get for $2,000 an hour." He walked away, shoulders slumped, and I felt a pang of guilt, but only for a moment. They'd chosen Monica over me, and now they were paying the price. Hebrew Carlos called the next day, his patience razor thin. "Claire, we're prepping legal action," he said. "Your app's still lagging, and Monica's a liability. Fix it or we're done." I assured him I was working on it, but my mind was elsewhere. The authentication lock was my leverage, and I was ready to pull the trigger. Every patch I sent Carlos kept his contract alive, but I was laying the groundwork for something bigger. Monica's public meltdown had cracked Dawson Dynamics' reputation, and I was about to widen that fracture. I spent nights sketching out my next steps, my plan to reveal the lock's existence taking shape. This wasn't just about saving the company, it was about showing them who'd built it and who could break it. Ryan noticed my focus, his eyes narrowing as we worked. "You're not just fixing this, are you?" he asked, leaning back in his chair. I met his gaze, a slow smile spreading. "I'm setting the stage," I said. "They'll know exactly what I'm capable of." He nodded, his grin matching mine. "The office might have been Monica's battlefield, but it was my chessboard." Janet's offer lingered in my thoughts, a lifeline if I chose to walk away. But for now, I was in control, and Dawson Dynamics was about to learn what happened when you underestimated Claire Dawson. 3 months later, Monica's wedding became my stage. The venue, a sprawling Austin estate, was draped in white roses and string lights, but I wasn't there to celebrate. I'd been invited as a formality, a nod to family ties that felt more like a trap. I stood at the edge of the reception, my black dress sharp against the pastel crowd, watching Monica glide through guests in her gown. Dawson Dynamics board members were there, sipping champagne, unaware of the bomb I was about to drop. Carlos had emailed me that morning, his tone clipped. "We're cutting half the contract. Dawson Sync's still unstable." The news didn't surprise me. The authentication lock I'd embedded ensured it. Today, I'd make sure everyone knew why. The speeches began, and I seized my moment. I stepped to the microphone, my heart steady, and addressed the room. "Dawson Sync's core algorithm," I said, my voice clear, "requires my fingerprint every 72 hours to function. Without it, the app fails." The crowd froze, glasses clinking to a stop. Monica's face turned ashen, her bouquet trembling in her hands. "That's why your systems are crashing," I continued, locking eyes with the board members. "I built it, and I control it." Gasps rippled through the guests. Monica shoved through the crowd, her voice shrill. "You're betraying our family," she screamed. "You sabotaged us. I didn't flinch. You took my company," I said. "I protected what's mine." Abrifi Thomas pushed forward, his face red. "Claire, take a leadership role," he said, his voice urgent but low. "Fix this, and we'll make it right." Susan grabbed my arm, tears streaming. "Do it for your sister Claire," she sobbed. "For family." I pulled away, my chest tight but my resolve ironclad. "You chose Monica over me," I said, looking at them both. "You don't get to beg now." The board members whispered, their faces grim. Carlos, standing nearby, shook his head, his expression a mix of frustration and respect. The truth was out. Dawson Dynamics was crumbling, and I held the key. I left the microphone and walked out, the weight of their stares on my back. Outside, Ryan waited by his car, his grin wide as I approached. "You did it," he said, pulling me into a hug. "They're reeling." I nodded, adrenaline still coursing through me. "It's not over yet," I said. Earlier that week, I'd signed a contract with Janet Myers, CTO of a rival tech firm. Her offer was a fresh start, equity, creative control, and a team that valued me. I slid into Ryan's car, the Austin skyline stretching before us as we drove away. "What's next?" he asked, his hand on mine. "We build something new," I said, my voice firm, "something they can't touch." The fallout hit fast. Carlos's company slashed $50 million from Dawson Dynamics' contract, citing operational instability. A tech blog broke the story the next day. Dawson Sync's collapse, founder's lock shakes family firm. The article detailed Monica's failed leadership and my reveal, painting Dawson Dynamics as a cautionary tale. I read it over coffee, a quiet satisfaction settling in. Thomas's emails flooded my inbox, pleading for a meeting, but I ignored them. Susan's voicemails, choked with apologies, went unanswered. They'd built their empire on my code, then tried to erase me. Now they were facing the consequences. Ryan and I spent nights planning our future. We sketched out ideas for a new app, one that would rival Dawson Sync but belong to us. Janet's firm was already setting up a lab for me, and her team's excitement was infectious. "You're going to kill it," Ryan said one evening, his laptop glowing with our mock-ups. I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in months. Dawson Dynamics had been my home, but it was also my cage. Leaving it behind wasn't just freedom, it was victory. The wedding reveal wasn't about revenge, it was about truth. Monica's accusations, Thomas's offers, Susan's tears, they couldn't change what they had done. I'd given them everything, and they'd thrown it away for a vision that didn't exist. As Ryan and I drove through Austin's streets, the city lights blurred into streaks of possibility. I wasn't the coder they'd dismissed anymore. I was Claire Dawson, the one who'd built an empire and walked away when it turned on me. Dawson Dynamics would limp on, but without me, it was just a shadow. My future was mine to write, and I was ready to start. 2 months after Monica's wedding, Austin's spring breeze carried my new freedom. I stood in the sleek offices of Janet Myers' tech firm, watching our new app, Nexus Flow, dominate the market. It was generating $200 million in revenue, double what Dawson Sync ever achieved at its peak. My team, engineers who respected my vision, cheered as we hit another milestone. Janet clapped me on the shoulder, her grin wide. "You've outdone yourself, Claire," she said. I smiled, feeling the weight of my past lift. Dawson Dynamics, the company I'd built, was now a shadow, and I was thriving without it. The fallout for Dawson Dynamics was brutal. After my reveal at Monica's wedding, their biggest clients, including Carlos, pulled out completely, costing them over $100 million in contracts. A tech journal reported a small-scale bankruptcy as the company scrambled to cover debts. Thomas had to sell the family's sprawling Austin villa to keep the business afloat, moving into a modest condo downtown. Monica sent me a text, her words dripping with false sincerity. "I'm sorry, Claire. Can we talk?" I didn't reply. Susan took it further, sending Daniel Harper, the family's lawyer, to my new office with a proposal to reconcile and rebuild. I laughed, handing him back the papers. "No thanks," I said. "I'm done." Susan called that evening, her voice sharp over the phone. "Claire, you're tearing us apart," she said. I leaned back in my chair, the Austin skyline glowing outside my window. "Remember that dinner in October, Mom?" I asked, my tone calm but pointed. "You chose Monica. I chose myself." I hung up, my heart steady. There was no going back. They'd built their legacy on my work, then discarded me. Now they were living with the wreckage, and I was building something better. My new chapter began beside Lady Bird Lake, where Ryan and I said our vows under a canopy of oak trees. The outdoor wedding was simple but vibrant, with wildflowers lining the aisle and tech friends from Janet's firm raising glasses to us. Ryan looked at me, his eyes warm, and whispered, "We made it, Claire." I squeezed his hand, my ring catching the sunlight. The crowd cheered as we kissed, the lake sparkling behind us. These were my people, those who saw my worth, who didn't demand I dim my light for their comfort. As we danced under the stars, I felt whole, untethered from the family that had tried to break me. The lessons came into focus that night. Family isn't just blood. It's the people who recognize your value, who stand by you when the world turns cold. Independence was my victory, not just over Dawson Dynamics, but over the idea that I needed their approval to succeed. I'd built Dawson Sync from nothing, and when they took it, I built Nexus Flow, something greater. Monica's fake apology, Thomas's desperation, Susan's pleas, they were noise, not truth. My real family was here, laughing with me, believing in me. Ebro Dawson Dynamics limped on, a cautionary tale in Austin's tech scene. A blog post summed it up, "Family Betrayals Sinks Software Giant." I read it and felt no guilt, only clarity. They'd underestimated me, and now they were paying the price. Ryan and I were already planning our next project, a platform to empower small businesses free from corporate games. Janet's firm gave us the resources, but the vision was ours. As I stood on the lake's edge, the spring breeze cool against my skin, I knew I'd won, not by destroying them, but by outgrowing them. Independence wasn't just my shield, it was my strength.